Ezekiel saw a wheel in the middle of a wheel, sings one old Negro spiritual. And at least by statistics, African Americans, at least before the current public health crisis, were amongst the most religious from any denomination in America. Practically the equivalent in faith devotion to their ideological and partisan opposites, white evangelical Christians. Describing these two distinct groups in an America where Benny and Bonnie Hill, a biracial couple, were reported to have been abducted by alien visitors, Martin Luther King Jr., like his mentor and mine, Dr. Benjamin Mays, had described 11 o'clock on Sunday morning as the most segregated hour in America. Returning to this theme later, Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates had observed that back in former days that separation was determined by law. But today, especially in an ever-increasingly divisive identity politic, that separation amongst those who profess to love their Lord is simply a matter of choice. Hello, my name is Major Mike Webb, and as many know, I am the son of a preacher man, immersed in an infectious dose of faith as a child, but also had the providential opportunity about 3 decades ago to serve as the most junior commissioned officer to have ever served in that capacity in echelon above Corps Army counterintelligence. With a bird's eye view and the highest clearance over quite a few things, and for some reason I cannot say why, folks like to send FOIA requests to the Department of Defense to find out what they are hiding about UFOs, and as if they possessed a need to know, and not just some irrational desire based upon their feelings, and nothing close to logical or rational. And many Americans today are looking, hopefully, forward towards June 29th, when after 6 months long investigations, the Pentagon is poised to produce a report addressing sightings in cooperation with the Director of National Intelligence on unexplained aerial phenomena, UAPs, the evolving science nomenclature for what had formerly been described as UFOs, is released. So as one might expect, a religious devotee might be anxious about a government report on the existence of a providential power in the heavens, oft described by opponents as a type of cosmic Santa Claus. Jerry Corbell, a documentary filmmaker and UFO enthusiast, grinning like a child on Christmas morning, told ABC News, "The fact that the report even exists, or is going to exist, is the biggest thing for me. But official sources at the Pentagon are preparing the public not to be too over-optimistic about this data-driven report that is intended more to establish parameters for government-wide classification and identification of these unexplained aerial phenomenon in an unclassified report." According to national polls conducted in the United Kingdom in 2012, Huffington Post reported that 33 million United Kingdom citizens believe in extraterrestrial life, compared to just over 27 million less than half a century ago who believe in God. 52% believe UFO evidence had been covered up because widespread knowledge of their existence would threaten government stability. The need to know. 1 in 10 people had reported actually seeing a UFO. 1 in 10, with a quarter more men than women claiming to have seen them. More men than women seeing UFOs in England. 20% of respondents believe UFOs have landed on Earth. 20% in England. However, more than 5 million British citizens, stiff upper lip, believe the Apollo moon landings were actually fake. Fake news. And only 44% of those in Merry England believe in God. And so, one of the first questions that arises, at least from this sample of folks across the pond, who even dispute the landing on the moon and Neil Armstrong, Apollo 13, their enthusiasm for science fiction might be questioned as opposed to their dedication to that which we like to call science. And definitely Star Wars and Star Trek fans are quite passionate about their science fiction, even wear their uniforms. which paint often a simplistically dualistic view, often found in Hegelian dialecticism, very popular among socialists and Marxists, posing the idea of only two distinct types of extraterrestrials. Some that are perfectly good, intelligent, and compassionate kind of like the Vulcans that are presented in the films like First Contact, bringing the technology to humans. And the ever delightful E.T. who just enjoyed hanging out with kids, eating candy, flying on bicycles, and phoning home. And then there are those other bad extraterrestrials, like Alien and Darth Vader and the Imperial Forces, who just want to do bad things and hurt people, with no gray in between. When you are more advanced, suddenly things are clear, distinct, and unambiguous. But intriguingly, even in one episode where the ever-logical Spock appears in an Earth-like setting around the time of the Great Depression, Captain James Tiberius Kirk even warned his logical friend that he had better hide his ears lest something bad happen to him by some of those folks who just would not understand. Back in the colonies, as they say in merry old England, long before the buzzword was insurrection, and even before pandemic became a common word, in September 2019, an internet campaign called Storm Area 51 had nearly 2 million people pledging to break into a highly secure military base later that month in the hopes of uncovering possible secrets about UFOs that dwarfed the 3,000 at the Capitol on January 6th. And this is according to Gallup Polls News, who also found that as many as 2/3 of Americans believe the government knows more about the subject than it has conveyed. The 68% of Americans who believe that government is hiding something at Nellis Air Force Base near Las Vegas, where everyone knows whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, has actually declined from 71% back in 1996 rather, when I was working as the operations officer for Strategic Counterintelligence. And a good look at the demographics is often intriguing. Just like the findings that the hardcore sci-fi fans tend to be our wannabe Captain Kirks or Han Solos or Luke Skywalkers, with the Princess Leias making up only about 10 to 13%. Pretty much reflected in the demographics of the films. Would you believe that as many as 33% of U.S. adults believe that some UFO sightings over the years have in fact been alien spacecraft visiting Earth from other planets or galaxies? 33%. But the majority, 60%, are yet skeptical, saying that all UFO sightings can be explained by human activity or natural phenomena through science, while another 7% are still unsure. So perhaps the excitement even by Dan Bongino about the big UFO report is an interest in learning more about human activity, human natural activity in science. They haven't yet been able to work through in their head and understand. It's possible. It is definitely possible in involving science that finds as many as 54% of Virginians fully vaccinated with an experimental vaccine, ranked 14th in the nation currently, but hoping to surpass number 1 territorial possession, Palau, out in the Pacific. Imagine that. To even surpass Vermont among a cluster of New England states in the top 5 states where residents apparently on all evidence heard immunity, but were deafened during the delivery of the vaccines through the Defense Production Act. Defense, which cannot be used to address a communicable disease, as that big clue, defense, was supposed to provide an early warning, trigger an immune response. Perhaps they need to remain woke, especially since 16% of Americans say they have personally witnessed something they thought was a UFO. And in inclusive equity and compassion, don't wake up surprised to learn that even though most Americans at least say they are skeptical privately when alone amongst themselves, being inclusive and diverse, in surveys, a majority, 56%, believe that those who spot UFOs are seeing something real. They haven't seen them personally, but they believe that their friends are seeing these paranormal phenomena, not just imagining it. And this is up from 47% back in 1996, back when I was in strategic counterintelligence, receiving FOIA requests about UFOs. With the largest faith denomination describing themselves as nuns, a group that is now even larger than Roman Catholics, doubting a heaven or hell after they eventually die. It may be refreshing yet to learn that about half of Americans, 49%, almost 20% less than the number of Democrats who are confident that they understood the science of a novel coronavirus in July, when the scientists were not even confident that they knew the scientists. And they were calling anyone who believed it was a product of a laboratory just plain crazy. To think that someone like ourselves exists someplace else in the universe. There is a someplace else, somebody just like you on another planet far away, and just trying to make that connection. While many highly educated professors in Northern Virginia are still processing the pandemic potential of a less than 5% infectious pathogen springing from the most abundant biological particles in the world that had yet, before an explosion of mutant variations began to threaten the world, had only produced a total of 220 viruses harmful to man. There is still yet assurance that a reliance upon the law of large numbers, statistics, and probability, when considering the vastness of the cosmos, as many as 75% of Americans believe that some form of life exists on other planets, regardless of type or intelligence. And recall that by credentials, to their credit, at least in Northern Virginia, where if you ain't a Democrat, you really ain't a good person, they are statistically more likely to possess a baccalaureate or advanced graduate degree, ranked 14th in the county of Arlington alone for graduate degrees. And it is always a welcome experience to hear these open-minded folks express their feelings of love, equity, and inclusion, which some alien visitor, just like them somewhere perhaps, one day might appreciate just as well. But for a moment, looking at the vastness of the universe and the possibilities of other forms of intelligent life somewhere out there in the boundless limits of space amongst the stars, there may evolve some sentient being with superior knowledge and technology to actually find this third planet from our sun in the Milky Way. How rational would they have to be to spend all that gas money on a wild road trip to spread goodwill and cheer throughout the universe? Just think about it. It just would not be logical. And what would happen if they came all this way, millions of miles, with wonderful technology, and then told you that they voted for Donald Trump? Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Shabar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity, the word of the Lord came expressly unto Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Shabar. And the hand of the Lord was there upon him. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. Also out of the midst thereof came likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, and every one had 4 faces, and every one had 4 wings. And their feet were straight, and their sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. And they had the hands of a man under their wings on their 4 sides, and they 4 had their faces and their wings. The wings were joined one to another. They turned not when they went every one straight forward. As for the likeness of their faces, they 4 had the face of a man, and the face of a lion on the right side. And they 4 had the face of an ox on the left side. They 4 also had the face of an eagle. Thus were their faces, and their wings were stretched upward. 2 wings of every one were joined one to another, and 2 covered their bodies. And they went every one straight forward. Whither the Spirit was to go, they went. They turned not when they went. As for the likeness of the creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, and like the appearance of lamps, it went up and down among the living creatures. And the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. And the living creatures ran, and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning. Now, as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheeled upon the earth by the living creatures, which is 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of beryl, and they 4 had one likeness. Their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. When they went upon their 4 sides, and they turned not when they went. As for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful, and their rings were full of eyes round about them 4. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Whithersoever the Spirit was to go, they went. Thither was the Spirit to go. And the wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. When those went, these went. And when those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. And the likeness of the firmament upon the head of the living creature was as the color of the terrible crystal, stretched forth over their heads above. And under the firmament were their wings straight, the one toward the other. Every one had 2, which covered on this side, and every one had 2, which covered on that side their bodies. And when they went, I heard the noise of their wings, like the noise of great waters, as the voice of the Almighty, the voice of speech, as the noise of an host. When they stood, they let down their wings. And there was a voice from the firmament that was over their heads when they stood, and had let down their wings. And above the firmament there was over their heads, and was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above it. And I saw as the color of amber, as the appearance of fire round about within it, from the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward. I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about. As the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the bright round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spake. This briefing is unclassified. My name is Major Mike Webb, and by God, I am running for Arlington Public School Board. Let's keep Mike Webb away from law schools. Honest.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.
I bet you. Maybe it's used.